Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailing President Donald Trump's peace plan for the Middle East, saying it accomplishes Israel's goals in its war against Hamas, as the plan calls for the terrorist group to be disarmed and the hostages to be set free. Now the world awaits the response from Hamas. Christian leaders in the Philippines joining protests in the streets against government corruption and calling for a transformation of their country. As more than 27 million men deal with substance abuse here in the United States, we're going to bring you a look at a free Christian-based program to help them to recover. And God, again, on the move on college campuses as more than 1,000 come to salvation at a Unite Us event at the University of South Florida. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
And we begin this half hour with President Trump's peace plan for the Middle East as the U.S., Israel, and other countries await reaction from Hamas, with the president saying if Hamas does not agree, Israel will have the administration's full support to do what it has to do against the terrorist group. CBN's Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has the story now. She's reporting from Jerusalem.
At a joint press conference, President Trump presented his comprehensive plan for peace in the Middle East.
So today is a historic day for peace.
He thanked leaders of Arab and Muslim nations, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, Turkey, and Indonesia.
It's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East.
The proposal includes the return of 48 hostages, about 20 of whom are believed to still be alive, within 72 hours of signing the agreement in exchange for 250 Palestinian prisoners and an immediate end to the war.
Under the plan, Arab and Muslim countries have committed to demilitarize Gaza, and that's quickly. Decommission the military capabilities of Hamas and all other terror organizations. Do that immediately. And we're relying on the countries that I named and others to deal with Hamas.
Hamas terrorists who lay down their weapons will receive amnesty and passage out. Trump said it's up to Hamas now to agree to the deal.
But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do.
Netanyahu said he supports Trump's plan because it achieves Israel's war aims.
It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
Earlier, Netanyahu apologized to Qatar officials for the recent attempt to target Hamas leaders in Qatar. If Hamas agrees to the plan, the first step will be a modest Israeli withdrawal and the release of the hostages.
The next step will be the establishment of an international body charged with fully disarming Hamas and demilitarizing Gaza.
That body is dubbed the Board of Peace, headed by Trump and including regional countries. As to a future Palestinian state, Trump's plan calls for reforms in the Palestinian Authority, which could create conditions for, quote, a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize as the aspiration of the Palestinian people. Netanyahu says the reforms must be deep and permanent.
And that means ending pay to slay, changing the poisonous textbooks that teach hatred to Jews, to Palestinian children, stopping incitement in the media, ending lawfare against Israel at the ICC, the ICJ, recognizing the Jewish state, and many, many other reforms.
As Netanyahu heads back to Israel, the world waits to see if Hamas will sign on to the deal. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem with more. So, Chris, what is the reaction in the Israeli government and the public to this peace plan?
Well, right now, the reaction, Ephraim, is mixed. The political operation leaders, they're supporting the plan that would include Yair Lapid, Benny Gantz, Hostage Families Forum. That's the one that recognizes or advocates for many of the hostage families. They're supporting their plan. They're saying they're taking a breath of relief from this press conference yesterday. The Tikva Forum, which is usually in opposition to that Hostage Families Forum, they said it actually was consistent with their principles to release all the hostages at once, and that if Hamas reneges, then Israel can go ahead and do what it can to continue to destroy Hamas. So many, there kind of mixed reactions on both sides. There are others who are saying, like Avi Abelo, we interviewed him earlier today for Jerusalem Dateline. He believes this opens the door to Qatar. Many people have said Hamas is Qatar and Qatar Hamas. They're a supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood, so that it brings Qatar into the equation, which he thinks in the long run could be very dangerous for the Jewish state.
Is there a concern, could Hamas sign on to this plan just to gain time and try to quietly rebuild its forces?
It remains to be seen, Ephraim, how much Hamas can do right now. Their military capability has been reduced significantly. Right now, the IDF controls the borders, and it really signals right now we're hearing that Hamas really doesn't support the deal. They're calling it Trump's plan in certain articles that are allied with Hamas. Is Netanyahu's plan, it says, and it achieves for Netanyahu what he failed on the battlefield. So it remains to be seen if this is going to be supported by Hamas at all, and whether the deal will be signed. But what this plan also does, Ephraim, it opens the door for what they call an international security force. They call it the ISAF, and that they may actually be able to enter into this into certain terror-free zones right now and begin to put its forces in there. So we'll see what happens in that regard.
Do some Israeli leaders believe Hamas will go along with the plan, and Israel would have President Trump's full support to finish off Hamas if they don't?
In fact, many people believe that maybe Netanyahu entered into this deal because knowing that Hamas would likely reject it. Hamas has to release all the hostages, and that is the leverage they have had over Israel ever since October 7th. They would have to disarm. They would no longer control Gaza. So it really means, in a sense, they're ending the ability of Hamas to function in Gaza or govern Gaza. So many believe Hamas won't agree to this. And as I said, some believe Netanyahu actually entered into the deal believing Hamas will only reject it, and then in opening up the door for Israel to go ahead and finish off Hamas militarily.
Netanyahu reportedly denies this plan permits the establishment of a Palestinian state. What's your understanding there?
Well, there seems to be two views about that, Ephraim. Netanyahu said, and he did this in an interview as he just was leaving the United States, he said, absolutely not. It's not written in the agreement either. But one thing we did say, we strongly oppose a Palestinian state. He says President Trump also said this and understands that, and that it would be an obvious reward for terrorism, a danger to the state of Israel, and we won't agree to that. However, in the 20-point plan that was released, it says in point 19, and Julie mentioned it in her report, while Gaza redevelopment advances and when the PA for Reform program is faithfully carried out, it says the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to a Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize as the aspiration for the Palestinian people. So which is it? Obviously, the Palestinian Authority looks like it's really not going to have any role in a future Gaza after the war, but some concern down the line it could lead to a Palestinian state. And people that read the Bible, they're saying, if you look at Joel chapter 3, that's a warning of dividing God's land, and they're very concerned that this could lead to a Palestinian state, which would, in effect, divide the land God gave to the Jewish people.
Are there worries about the potential establishment of a Palestinian state and the possible threat to Israel in the future?
Yeah, one Likud member actually made this point, Ephraim. He said that there really are about 100,000 terrorists already inside Gaza. He says about 40,000 formal fighters, another 60,000 that are employed by Hamas, and that they won't disappear, even though this plan is signed. And they believe that this is just maybe kicking the can down the road, and that it would eventually lead to a Palestinian state. So some Likud members, part of Netanyahu's coalition, are concerned about this as well.
What do you have for us this evening on Jerusalem Dateline? Well,
an update on the latest, Ephraim, also analysis with Avi Abelo. He's the founder of Pulse for Israel. I have a story of Yom Kippur. And just on Thursday and actually tomorrow afternoon, Yom Kippur will begin. That's a 25-hour period of fasting and prayer for the Jewish people, the holiest day of the year. So we have a story on that. Also a story on many of the conspiracy theories surrounding Israel right now. A story by Dale Hurd about that. And a story and an interview about replacement theology and why that's a concern as well.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your insight. Of course, we look forward to hearing and seeing more from you in the days ahead this week. I want to remind you at home you can get the latest from Jerusalem Dateline by tuning in at 8 Eastern on the CBN News channel. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, and you can find it on YouTube as well. Coming up, protesters, including Christian leaders, taking to the streets in the Philippines against corruption in government and praying for change in their country. We've got their story for you when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. We're going to take you now to the Philippines, where protesters took to the streets this month to call for justice and accountability in their government. The protests are coinciding with a declaration of martial law more than 50 years ago by former dictator Ferdinand Marcos. He is the father of the current president. Faith leaders joined the crowd to denounce corruption and to pray for national transformation. Asia's correspondent Lucille Toulouse brings us the story now.
In Manila, Filipinos marched furious over what they call deeply rooted and systemic government corruption. This latest outrage centers on flood control projects, where investigators have uncovered high levels of fraud and collusion. In his State of the Nation address, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. cited corruption in public works as a major factor behind the country's devastating floods. He warned that those found guilty would be held accountable. Investigations have since revealed that contractors, government workers, and members of the Senate and Congress allegedly conspired to pocket more than $30 billion in kickbacks from flood control and infrastructure funds. Dubbed the Trillion Peso March, protesters are demanding accountability and justice. For many, it served as a powerful reminder of past human rights abuses and widespread corruption under Marcos Sr., and a warning to never let history repeat itself. While President Marcos Jr. is calling for an end to corruption and for the stolen public funds to be returned, many people here are hoping that rallies like this will pressure him and the Marcos family to lead by example and to return what they have stolen from the Filipino people. Church leaders played a strong role in the march, encouraging the body of Christ to take a stand.
Our voice should be heard. You know, the government is instituted by God to promote good and restrain evil. And if the government is not anymore promoting good and restraining evil, but rather they are part of this corruption, then we have to speak out, because they are not fulfilling the mandate, the God-given mandate for good governance.
We thank God for this opportunity to be salt and light in our country. Just like Pastor Martin Luther King, who prayed and demonstrated his courage in the United States. We praise God. All the people came because of the courage of this one pastor. There is hope in the Philippines. No to corruption. God bless the Philippines.
Demands go beyond justice, as Filipinos are also pushing for systemic reform, hoping to end what they call a culture of corruption that's robbed the nation for generations. Lucille Toulouse, CBN News, Manila.
Still ahead, we're going to hear about a free Christian-based recovery program for men struggling with addiction. This story's coming up right after this. More than 27 million men struggle with substance abuse in the United States. Many of them are ashamed of it, so some avoid seeking help. On this week's episode of Healthy Living, we're learning about the Potter's House, a free Christian-based recovery program. Take a look.
The Potter's House is a program of Atlanta Mission. Our organization's mission is to transform lives through Christ of those facing homelessness, poverty, and addiction. And so the Potter's House, located not in Atlanta, just north of Atlanta, about 60 miles, close to a city called Jefferson. It is a men's addiction program, and we have been providing services since 1967.
How is the Potter's House funded?
We receive funding from donors, individual donors, foundations. We do get grants, and we actually just recently received a federal grant this year.
You say it's a men-only thing. About how many men are there at any given time?
Yeah, today I can tell you that we have 132 men on campus. We're one of the largest facilities in the state of Georgia for addiction recovery, and that's a lot of guys that we're serving right now.
And how long do the guys typically stay there?
Yes, so when you come to the Potter's House, you typically are going to commit a year of your time into our program. What it looks like is that commitment. The first 6 months of your time within our program is going to be a learning phase where you're going to get a chance to go take a lot of classes, to unlearn some things, to learn some new things. Those classes would focus on opportunities for learning about your addiction, learning what's happening with your brain. It also will be a chance where you get to take some Bible study classes. You might learn some better coping skills for your recovery, and you work with an interdisciplinary team. We have a counselor, an advocate, or a peer in recovery, and then a social worker who wraps around each client and is doing one-on-one sessions and works together to steward the first 6 months of a client's journey. And then guys will transition to the second phase of the program. I like to call it the phase where you're going to apply what you've just learned. And guys will transition to finding a job. They will work that job for the remainder of their year, and they will start to engage in the community. They will work on going to recovery meetings, obtaining a sponsor. They might be reconciling some relationships with family members or loved ones, and they will follow a budget and save money, and will really have a chance to practice a lot of things while doing all of those activities so that they can ultimately be rooted in community, that they can retain their employment in order to find secure housing and transition out of our program successfully.
It sounds really well thought out. What type of a success rate do you guys experience at the Potter's House?
This last fiscal year, our success rate was around 24%. And that number sounds pretty low, but within this work, it's actually pretty high. So we celebrate every success that we have within our program. And even though somebody might not finish our program, what happens is you still get to learn a lot. So we have heard back from some people that maybe didn't make it through our entire process. They have found success on their own because they did apply some of the principles that we were able to teach them too. And so we, again, celebrate all of that success that happens here.
What types of addictions are these fellas struggling with?
All kinds. We see alcoholism, of course. We definitely see all substances being used. So take your pick. You've got opioid use, you've got methamphetamine. We have people that use marijuana so heavily that it's disrupted things in their life, and they've come to us for help. There's still crack cocaine use. There's cocaine use, heroin use. We also see the majority of the guys that we serve, they have used multiples of those substances and even more. I mean, there's new drugs that are coming on the market all the time. It's ever evolving. And so we see people that are struggling with all of it.
And to learn more about the Potter's House and how to deal with addiction on this week's episode of Healthy Living, you can find it today on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 2:30 and 8:30 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app and find it on YouTube. Coming up, God is still at work on campuses with more students coming to Christ during a Unite Us event at the University of South Florida. We've got the story for you. It's coming up when we come back. The nationwide effort to introduce the next generation to Jesus Christ is still spreading the gospel on college campuses. Unite Us held its second event of the year last week on the campus of the University of South Florida in Tampa. Unite Us reports some 7,000 people came for a time of worship, preaching, and prayer, and for baptism as well. And more than 1,000 people came forward to accept Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. More than 300 of them were baptized. The ministry has more events scheduled this year on college campuses in Tennessee, Arizona, Ohio, and North Carolina. I want to let you know you can find this full story, including testimonies of salvation, at cbnnews.com. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and today I share this thought in hopes you will post-tag tweet and share it with those in your circles of influence. There is still hope. Don't quit on God. He won't quit on you, and He cannot fail. With that word, make this a terrific Tuesday, and there's still time to make this a wonderful week. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. And remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That is cbnnews.com. We'll see you back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless. Thank you for watching.